You need to stop using Unity right now. It's slowing down the progress you're making towards becoming a game developer and will lead to the inevitable failure of your dreams of becoming a game developer and making your dream game. It doesn't matter whether you want to become an indie solo developer or work at a AAA studio. You need to listen to my advice and I will explain why. I have been using Unity since the early 2010s and it is a fantastic piece of software that should not be underestimated. I had always dreamt of making a game of my own, and when I found Unity for the first time, I thought my dreams had come true. I would be able to make whatever game I could think of. Sadly, I was mistaken. I quickly realized that programming and game development in general is extremely difficult. It would take a lot of effort to get to a point where I could make almost anything. But I knew it wasn't impossible. However, being young and dumb, I fell into a trap. I became trapped in tutorial hell. A state of being where you are continuously following tutorial after tutorial, making nothing but hollow copies of other people's projects. Or if I was feeling ambitious, I would try and cobble together a bunch of random tutorials I found online. This rarely worked, but I was at least attempting to be creative. However, this was also a futile effort, and I would eventually fail outright or give up. And I followed this pattern for years. I was working on these mindless, nothing projects, thinking I was making progress and learning something, when I was simply taking the role of a humble scribe, making copies of projects that millions of people before me had done the same thing. And all of these projects had little to no educational value. I'd learned the basics of programming through sheer repetition, but I never learned the fundamentals of object-oriented programming or software design in general. And as such, I couldn't create anything original, as I didn't understand the base components and structures that made up basic computer programs and programming principles. But everything changed in early 2020. I began reading books. In the beginning, I was simply reading whatever fiction book drew my attention. But with some time, while I was perusing Amazon, I stumbled upon some programming books. And always looking to learn something new, I got my hands on a few of them. And this is the best thing I've ever done in my programming journey. I've been self-teaching myself programming since I was 13 and just got fluent enough to understand English on a basic level. And from the moment I got my hands on these well-structured programming books, I was hooked. Unlike my years at school, I was willingly learning about these advanced concepts of abstraction and polymorphism, programming design patterns, and much, much more, simply for the satisfaction of mastery. As I continued my attempts at working with Unity, I began to realize that I no longer needed tutorials. I could think of a gameplay mechanic or a cool feature I wanted to implement and just start coding. In the beginning, this wasn't a constant feeling, but I could slowly sense that I was going to Google less and less often. And the amount of times I was Googling decreased so fast that it got to a point where I was only ever really Googling something when I was trying to learn something entirely new. And this transformation is solely attributed to my dedicated and specific study and practice of programming fundamentals. Although this isn't fun to say to a beginner, I must be honest with all of you. If you sincerely want to make a living as a game developer and you are not familiar with the basics and fundamentals of object-oriented programming as C# is, to a point where you could pick up a completely new programming language within a couple of days, then you're not ready to start working on major projects without spending an ungodly amount of time on just trial and error, trying to solve a huge amount of bugs that's going to accumulate over time. And your speed of development is going to decrease slowly until a point where you can no longer add features to your project without taking an incredible amount of time and effort. And this is the truth. I've experienced this. I've been in your situation where I would just mindlessly start projects thinking this time was different. And this is what I want you to take away from this story. Don't make the same mistakes as I did. Sure, continue making small little games here and there, finish one sparingly, do a lot of programming. But if you're serious about making your dreams of becoming a game developer come true, buy a book on any object-oriented programming language and clean coding principles and some software architecture and design patterns. It doesn't matter what language you pick, really. They're almost all the same. And maybe buy a few courses on Udemy. And if you feel really adventurous, just read the C# documentation provided by Microsoft. This will be worth a 1,000 times more than any number of the incredibly bad YouTube tutorials you will find online. In the description below, I will leave a list of great programming books that you can pick up to level up your skills as a game developer. And if you want to learn why not finishing your games is the quickest and most efficient way of becoming a better Unity developer after you've mastered the fundamentals, check out my other video on the topic.